Hi everyone, and welcome back to Jim Vernon Solutions, the Learn HTML series using W3 Schools. We're in the CSS chapter. We've covered external, internal, and inline CSS, and we've seen how they cascade. And then we're going to come and we're going to wrap up most of the other things you can do with CSS in this clip. Starting with colors, fonts, and sizes, we can see a do-it-yourself. We're going to open that, but you can see there's also information on border, padding, and margin, and we're going to add those into the same try it yourself just to see them all work together. So if we open up the try it yourself, let's actually add those other style elements into the this is the internal, right? Because it's in the style block here. This is the internal CSS. There's no external CSS used here, but you know you could use an external style sheet with the exact same properties. And if you really wanted to, you could put inline CSS on each particular element and get the same thing accomplished that way. And you can cascade and override depending on which level you're at. So let's add those and come back. So let's review what I've added here. I've got the style block, and basically I added the border, padding, and margin. Unlike the try it yourself exercises in the tutorial, I've added them to both the H1 and the P. So the heading and the paragraph are going to be affected in exactly the same way. We're going to rerun this just to see what border, padding, and margin do, and then we're going to play with them and adjust them. So when we do that, the border shows up as, in both cases, 2 pixels of thickness in the border. It's a color of powder blue. It's solid, right? We've got padding of 30 pixels. That's the distance between the text and the border in all directions. And we got margin of 50 pixels, which is the distance between the border and the edge of either the edge of the page on the left and right, or the next element up, next element down. So now let's just play around with a few of those. We can make it a thicker border on the paragraph if we want, or actually let's make it a thicker border on the heading because that makes a little more sense. We can make it 10 pixels thick and rerun it, right? We can obviously change the color to, I don't know if coral's a color. Let's try it. I don't know why I want to do that, but there's coral. Okay, so you can change color values. You can obviously change any of the values. If you think the paragraph is a little large, for example, you can make it normal just by making it 100%, right, and rerun it. So you can see how you can change any of the definitions. Hopefully after the last video, you can see how you could add inline to the header or the paragraph to override these definitions. So we're not talking about the actual cascading here, just what can we do. And so the nice thing is you can really control a lot of layout issues by controlling padding, margin, border. You can change the look and feel with the font families. Here you see Verdana in the heading and Courier. I won't review all of the font family options, but you have many. Just in terms of font families, just be a little careful remembering that if you implement a font family in your CSS that isn't really supported by the browser, then you might end up with a web page that doesn't really look like the way you want it to. So you may have lots of options, but you want to investigate which fonts are most common and stick a little closer to the mainstream than you might otherwise. Okay, so that's a brief review of all the other types of style elements that you can impact with CSS, and we'll come back in the next video with the exercises.